My fiancé said, "If you can't accept my past, then we have no future." When I found her ex's love letters in her drawer, I said, "I accept everything." Then I made a decision about our future that she never expected. I, 29M, thought I knew everything about my fiancé when I stumbled across those letters. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months, and I believed we shared everything. That Tuesday afternoon changed everything. She was at work when I went to grab some documents from her desk drawer for our mortgage application. That's when I saw them. A neat stack of handwritten letters tied with a red ribbon, hidden beneath some old paperwork. The familiar handwriting on the envelopes made my stomach drop. Her ex-boyfriend's name was scrawled across the return address, dated just 2 months before we met. My hands trembled as I read the first letter. It wasn't just correspondence between exes. These were love letters, passionate and detailed, describing intimate moments and future plans they'd made together. But what destroyed me wasn't the content about their past relationship. It was the timestamp on the last letter, dated 3 weeks ago. Fresh ink. Recent postmark. The letter described how he missed her touch, how he'd wait for her to come back to him, and how their connection was too strong to be broken by time or distance. He wrote about the weekend they'd spent together at their old favorite cabin, mentioning specific details that made it clear this wasn't ancient history. This was happening now, during our engagement. I photographed every letter with my phone, my heart pounding as I heard her car pull into the driveway. I quickly returned everything to its original position and greeted her with a kiss, tasting betrayal on my lips. That evening, she noticed something was wrong immediately. She asked if I was feeling okay, and I told her I was just tired from work. She pressed further, saying I seemed distant, but I deflected by asking about her day. She described her routine office activities, never mentioning any contact with her ex, never hinting at the double life she was apparently living. Over the next few days, I became a detective in my own relationship. I started paying attention to details I'd previously ignored. The nights she worked late that couldn't be verified. The weekend girls' trips that seemed to have gaps in her stories. The way she guarded her phone more carefully than before. I called her office one evening when she claimed to be working late. Her colleague told me she'd left at her regular time, around 5. When she came home at 10 that night, she explained she'd gone shopping after work and lost track of time. But she had no shopping bags, and her story felt rehearsed. The breaking point came when I found a hotel receipt in her purse while looking for breath mints. The date matched one of her supposed girls' weekend trips. The hotel was in the same small town where her ex lived, about 3 hours away. The receipt showed a single occupancy room, but when I'd asked about her trip, she'd told me she'd shared a room with her friend to save money. I confronted her that Friday evening. I placed the letters on our kitchen table and told her I'd found them while looking for our mortgage documents. Her face went white, then red, then settled into a defensive expression I'd never seen before. She told me those letters were from the past, that she'd kept them for sentimental reasons. When I mentioned the recent postmarks, she admitted he'd been reaching out, but claimed she hadn't responded. I showed her the hotel receipt, and her story crumbled further. Finally, she broke down and confessed that she'd been seeing him occasionally, trying to figure out her feelings. Then came the words that would define everything that followed. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said that if I couldn't accept her past and the complexity of her emotions, then we had no future together. She told me that relationships weren't black and white, that she loved me but also had unresolved feelings for him. She said I needed to accept that she was a complicated person with a complicated past, or we should end things. I sat quietly for a long moment, processing her ultimatum. Then I looked at her and told her I accepted everything. I said I understood that she had feelings for her ex, that she'd been seeing him behind my back, and that she'd lied to me repeatedly. I told her I accepted all of it completely. She seemed relieved, almost smiling through her tears. She reached for my hand and told me she was glad I understood, that this was why she loved me, because I was so accepting and mature. That's when I made my decision about our future. I told her I was calling off our engagement immediately. I explained that accepting her actions didn't mean tolerating them or continuing our relationship. I said I accepted that she was the kind of person who could maintain relationships with multiple people through deception, and I accepted that I deserved better than that. The relief on her face turned to shock, then anger. She told me I was being manipulative, that I'd tricked her into confessing. I reminded her that she'd given me an ultimatum, accept her complexity, or end our relationship. I told her I was choosing to accept it by ending our relationship. Over the next few hours, she cycled through every emotion possible. She begged me to reconsider, promised to cut contact with her ex, and accused me of being unforgiving. I remained calm and consistent. I told her that someone who could lie to my face for months while planning our wedding wasn't someone I could trust as a life partner. The practical aspects of ending our engagement moved quickly. Since the house was in my name and I'd paid the down payment, she needed to find a new place to live. I gave her 2 weeks, which was generous considering the circumstances. I contacted our wedding vendors and discovered that most of our deposits were non-refundable, but I considered it a small price to pay for avoiding a marriage built on deception. Update 1. 3 days after our confrontation, she moved out to stay with a friend temporarily. She left most of her belongings, saying she'd return for them later. I used this time to process everything and make some difficult decisions about our shared commitments. I discovered more evidence of her deception while packing her things. Hidden in her jewelry box were printed emails between her and her ex, dating back 8 months. They'd been planning to reconnect long before their physical meetings began. She'd been emotionally cheating almost since the beginning of our engagement. The emails revealed the full scope of her manipulation. She'd been telling her ex that she was having doubts about our relationship, that she'd rushed into our engagement, and that she needed time to explore her feelings. Meanwhile, she'd been telling me how excited she was about our future and pushing for wedding planning details. Her friend called me that weekend, trying to mediate. She told me that my ex-fiancée was devastated and that everyone makes mistakes. I explained that this wasn't a single mistake, but a pattern of deliberate deception spanning months. The friend suggested couples counseling, but I told her that trust, once broken this extensively, couldn't be repaired with a few therapy sessions. Update 2. 2 weeks later, she returned with a moving truck to collect her belongings. She brought her ex-boyfriend with her, which answered any remaining questions about her priorities. I remained professional and cordial, helping carry boxes to avoid prolonging the process. As they loaded the truck, she tried one final conversation with me. She told me she realized she'd made a mistake, that she wanted to try again, and that she was willing to go to counseling. I thanked her for the offer, but explained that my decision was final. I told her I hoped she found happiness, but it wouldn't be with me. Her ex-boyfriend looked uncomfortable during this exchange, probably realizing he was getting involved with someone capable of elaborate deception. I almost felt sorry for him, knowing he was likely in for similar treatment eventually. After they left, I called my family and close friends to officially inform them that our engagement was over. Most were shocked, but supportive once I explained the situation. My parents admitted they'd had some concerns about her secretive nature, but hadn't wanted to interfere. Update 3. 6 months have passed since our breakup, and I've gained perspective on the entire situation. I learned through mutual friends that she and her ex-boyfriend lasted about 3 months before their relationship imploded. Apparently, once she was fully available to him, he lost interest in the chase and ended things. She tried to contact me twice during this period. The first time was through a mutual friend, asking if I'd be open to talking. I declined politely but firmly. The second time was a direct message on social media, apologizing for everything and asking for closure. I didn't respond. I've started dating again, slowly and carefully. The experience taught me to pay attention to red flags I might have previously dismissed. I've also learned to value straightforward communication over dramatic complexity. Looking back, I realized that her ultimatum was actually a gift. She forced me to choose between accepting deception as normal relationship behavior or maintaining my standards for honesty and commitment. By framing it as accepting her complexity, she tried to make her betrayal seem sophisticated rather than simply wrong. The most valuable lesson was understanding the difference between acceptance and tolerance. I could accept that she was capable of deception without tolerating that behavior in my own life. I could accept that some people view relationships as fluid and non-exclusive without compromising my own values about commitment and honesty. Final update. A year later, I'm in a healthy relationship with someone who shares my values about honesty and commitment. We discuss our concerns openly, maintain transparent communication, and don't hide aspects of our lives from each other. My ex-fiancée situation serves as a reminder that some people genuinely believe they can maintain multiple romantic relationships without consequences. She likely convinced herself that her feelings for both of us justified her actions, never considering the devastating impact of her deception on everyone involved. The irony is that if she'd been honest from the beginning about her unresolved feelings for her ex, we could have addressed the situation maturely. Instead, she chose deception, which destroyed any possibility of trust or reconciliation. Sometimes accepting someone's true nature means accepting that they're not the right person for you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away before causing more damage to both parties. And sometimes, when someone gives you an ultimatum about accepting their worst behavior, the healthiest response is to choose the option they least expect. I don't regret my decision. I accepted exactly what she asked me to accept, her capacity for deception and betrayal. I just didn't accept it as part of my future.